In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the books and some of the things I use to find ideas for my paintings. So sometimes I'll take photos of plants and flowers while I'm out at the museum or even at restaurants and things like that. There's a lot of flowers on the table, so I even take pictures and photos of those. So I get my inspiration from looking at images on Pexels, which is like a non-copyright photo where people share their photos that they've taken, and you can download them and you can use them. So they're non-copyright photos. And also I like going to the botanical garden to find inspiration, and I'll often take a camera or something with me that I can my phone most of the time, so I can take photos of the flowers. So I'm going to show you some of the books that I use. So I use a lot of books that have to do with flowers. So this one is called Handpicked. So I like this book because there's just a bunch of inspiration in here that shows you all kinds of colors, and it's just a lot of great inspiration. So not just flower arrangements or bouquets, but there's just a lot of great photography in this book. So so yeah, that's one of the book called Handpicked. And I also have the plant recipe book, and this is just showing you different arrangements of plants. So I like to look at how the plants are arranged. I don't necessarily copy it just like the book, but it gives me ideas. It gives me ways that I can paint. So sometimes I'm not a person that has a lot of still life equipment. Like I do have a few vases and flowers, like artificial flowers, but I mostly take my inspiration from books, and then I kind of like think of a way to make it on my own. So that's what I do. And this is another book called the Flower Recipe book. This is a great book. It's just like the plant recipe, but this one deals with flowers. So once again it's another book to show you how to arrange the flowers, and I just use it as a great tool for inspiration. So plus I'm a person who likes a lot of books, and I like to read. I like to just look at the pictures and everything like that. So that's how I get my inspiration. So sometimes I even go out on site to paint, but most of the time I'm usually painting inside. So I have to look at some kind of reference, something that will help me get started. I'm not too big on, I'm not a person that can really take it off the top of my head and try to paint, because it seems like when I do that, it just doesn't really turn out as great as I would like it to. Or maybe I haven't reached that level yet, but I just kind of like looking at books and looking at photos online, and also taking my own photos. So so yeah, that's what I do. And I take some time to flip through the books. I have a little art space, which I'm in right now. This is just my little place where I keep my books. I have a bookshelf, and I have some tables, and then the other room right next to this room is where I do my painting. So yeah, so that's what I do. I often spend a little bit of time just looking at pictures, and also I look at the colors. I also look at how the color combinations work. Sometimes in this book, the reason why I don't copy, because I like to create my own color combinations. So this book, you can see, has a dark background. I may want to do that like a blue color. I may want to do it an orange color. It just all depends on what I want to do. So, but the flower arrangement and the shapes of the flowers is what I'm really looking at. What I'm really geared towards, like the shadow, the shapes, and how the flowers are arranged. And then I can create my own colors, create my own, and even if I wanted to change like the vase, I would even switch it up. Maybe look at another vase that strikes my attention. So yeah, there's just so much you can do, so much you can come up with. So that's how I find my inspiration. That's how I find my ideas. And just taking some time to slow down and read and look at pictures. So if you're wanting to know how to get inspired and how to find ideas for your paintings, it's just as easy as just picking up a book and looking at pictures. So I hope this helps you and I hope it inspires you. And you know, I used to be a person that kind of worried, like, you know, I would see like other successful painters have like a lot of still life setups, and I didn't really have that many. So I had to figure out another way to paint, another way to get some ideas to paint. So, and I find that this idea is very helpful to me. So yeah, so that's what I do. And I just want to, I'm going to show you some examples of how I change the paintings in my artwork, how I take a photo and create my own painting. So I'm going to show you how I do that in just a second. So here, as you can see, I took a photo from the book. I took a picture of it on my phone and then placed it into this app called Procreate. So with Procreate, you can change things around. You can draw on photos. So that's a good way to figure out your designs and shapes and things like that. So what I did was I just inserted the photo into Procreate. Then I circled the shapes of the flowers by using like a gel pen or something. They have a multiple variety of brushes and pens and artistic tools to use to draw. So I'm just drawing on this photo that I took and inserted it into Procreate. So it's very easy. All you do is just insert the photo, and then you can choose a tool to draw with, like this gel pen I'm using, and just draw over the photo that was inserted. So this will help you to get an idea of the size and shapes that you can put into your paintings. It also helps you to create like a nice composition of flowers. So as you can see, I'm just kind of drawing around the shapes that I see. So I see some large shapes, some small shapes, mostly circles, and some like branches that are coming off that I'm drawing. So this is a great way to help you to come up with ideas and to also draw the shapes of the container that the flowers are in. So tracing is a good way to learn how to draw. So if you want to even practice tracing stuff, you can do that by just inserting a photo. And you can always delete the photo and look at the drawing that you created. So yeah, this is a great way to figure out your shapes and also to figure out the colors. So here I have a canvas that has been painted with like a pinkish magenta color, and I'm using white chalk to draw what I'm going to paint. So I like to draw on my canvas. Some people don't like to draw. They like to either paint with a paintbrush, but sometimes I like to just draw with chalk. So I'm drawing out my flowers that I'm going to paint. The reason why I like to draw with chalk is that you can kind of erase it if you need to by just using a rag or something to wipe it off with. So if you paint with a paintbrush, sometimes you can't really erase. So I'm using chalk because it's easy to erase. And so I'm just going to kind of sketch in what I think the flower looks like. So the activity that I did before, sketching on top of the photo in Procreate, just kind of gives me a better idea of what I'm going to draw. And it also gives you practice in drawing. So it helps to draw something multiple times before you actually paint it. So here I'm just sketching it out. I'm just putting basic shapes. I'm not really doing a whole lot of detailed drawing. I'm just making some shapes. As you can see, I'm not completing the whole drawing, but I'm just giving myself a guide as to where I am going to paint. And as you notice, I'm wearing gloves, and some people like to paint with gloves. Other people may not like to paint with gloves, but I feel painting with gloves is good. Painting with gloves keeps your hands from getting soaking in all the chemicals that may come from oil painting. So it's good to wear gloves. As you can see, I have it all sketched out and I'm ready to do my painting. I have my palette lined with the palette paper just to keep everything clean so I don't have to do a whole lot of cleaning up. I just tape my palette paper onto my wooden palette, and it's just easier to just toss the paper away once I'm done. So I have all my colors laid out, and I'm going to start mixing my colors. So I'm looking at the pictures in the book and the colors, and that will help me to see where I want to place certain colors, and also gives me a guide on what colors to mix. I can also create my own colors, but this book gives me a guide on what colors I'm going to mix. So now I'm going to start mixing the colors. Um, Sometimes I mixed beforehand. Like this time, I decided to mix my colors ahead of time. That way, it'll be easier to paint, and you'll have more time to think about how you're going to paint than what colors you're going to paint. So mixing your colors before time is a good way to keep your ideas fresh and that you won't forget. And also, it's just an easier way to paint. When your colors are already mixed out, you have less time to worry about other things, and you can think about how you're going to paint instead of what colors to mix. So spend some time just mixing colors. I'm using Galkit gel, which is a painting medium that speeds up the drying time, and it also leaves the brush marks in your paintings, so the painting is not so flat. So I like using Galkit gel because it's easy to clean up, it's easy to dispense. I don't have to put it into a jar or anything like that. I found that when I purchased Galkit Light or any of the painting mediums that's in a jar, it's just a little bit easier for me to use when I can just dispense it out of that tube. So that's just my personal preference. So like I said, it speeds up your drying time because, as you know, oil paints take a longer time to dry. So what I'm doing here is I am painting in the purple flowers first. So I'm just glancing back and forth, looking at my book, and I'm trying to see the shapes. I'm not doing an exact copy, but I'm just using it as a guide to help me to figure out where I'm going to place my flowers and the colors that I'm going to use. So I'm just taking some time to place in my flowers first. So what I'm doing here is I'm varying the different colors of purples and lilacs and things like that. So I'm not using the exact same colors. So I'm just kind of using different shades of the purple. I have some lights and some darks, and I'm just kind of, spreading them out, mixing them around, and this will help to give the painting some variety. You don't want to have a whole bunch of the same colors, and different shades of the same color makes it very interesting when you're doing a painting. So take some time. That's why it's important to take time to mix your colors, because you'll have a variety of colors you can use, and then you don't have to think about what color should I use next. You'll have a palette full of different colors, and you can still mix more colors, but when you pre-mix your colors, you have a variety of colors that you can work with instead of thinking about what color should you use. So what I'm doing next is painting the branches and the leaves of the flowers. So I've had my greens mixed already, and I'm able to place my greens. And I'm placing them in various areas around the flowers. And don't be afraid to, if you don't like where you've placed something, you can always wipe it off. So you can take a rag or a paper towel or something and just wipe it off if you're not happy with it. There's nothing wrong with erasing and changing something if you want to. That's the good thing about oil painting. It comes off easily. With acrylic paints, they may dry and you may not be able to erase, but you can always paint over. But with oil paints, since oil paints don't dry as quickly, you're able to wipe it off and paint over it. So now I'm adding the fine details to the oil painting. So I am going to start painting the vase and the background. So I've already mixed colors for the vase and background. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding lighter details to the flowers. So I'm using a smaller brush. When I painted the flowers, I was using a medium and small brush, and the brushes that I use are filbert brushes and flat brushes. And I mostly use those brushes because it's just something that I like to use. You can use whatever brushes you like, but filbert and flat brushes are my favorite brushes to paint with. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to do some back and forth sweeping brush strokes to paint the vase. So you can move your arms around. Feel free to, go back and forth, up and down, side to side. There's no one specific way to paint. But while you're painting, just continue to look at your book reference or your reference from your iPad or whatever you're going to use. Continue to look at that and see where you find shadows and dark areas, light areas. Once again, it gives you a guide as to where you're going to place the colors. So it helps to constantly look at your resources. There might be some greens. So as you see, when I'm painting this vase, there are some blues and greens, and not only browns and dark browns, but there are also some yellows, a few specks of different colors. So you want to just kind of really look at what you're painting, because you'll notice there are tons of colors. So as I'm painting the background, I'm not painting it one solid color, but I'm varying the colors that I'm using. So I might have a light gray, a dark gray, a purplish gray, a medium gray. I'm not just painting it one flat gray color. It makes the painting more interesting when you can use multiple colors. And I learned this from a watercolor artist who said, every 2 seconds change your color. That's what makes the painting more interesting, when you can change the colors and not just leave one flat color for the whole painting. So you want to just kind of go around and change the color a little while, so you're not just using the same color. One painting tip is to, while you're painting, just take time and don't think about trying to hurry up and get finished with the painting, but just slow down and just keep looking at your reference photos and, you know, changing it up if you want to, thinking of different colors you can use. Don't look at painting as if you're trying to hurry up and get it done, but just think of painting as a way to express yourself on a canvas. So you want to just spend time actually enjoying painting. So this way, when a person looks at your painting, they'll see that you really enjoyed the process. So just kind of don't be in such a rush. Most of my paintings, I can usually get done within a day. I don't really spend a lot of time on certain paintings. Certain paintings I spend a lot of time, but most of my paintings are done fairly quickly, but I'm not rushing through. I'm not painting just to get done. I'm painting to enjoy the process of painting. So that's just a little small tip. You know, while you're painting, take time to enjoy the process. Change things up if you want to, if you don't like it. And try and experiment with different things, like how I painted this canvas a pink magenta color. You can paint it like a dark blue color, or you can paint it a yellow color first and paint over top of that. So I just basically used acrylic paint to paint the canvas first, and then I just use oil paint on top of the acrylic paint. So it's okay to paint on top of acrylic. But yeah, just take time and explore. So all of painting is for you to enjoy the painting process. And when you enjoy the painting process, you become more creative and you start to think of different ways to make the painting special. So just remember to take time, slow down, and enjoy the process. And then the more you enjoy the process, the more you're going to want to paint again. So you're going to want to keep painting over and over. And you may find that some days you'll get tired, or some days you may not feel like painting, but just try to paint even on the days where you don't feel like painting. Or if you want to like look at an old painting that you painted and kind of change it, you can do that too. So don't let it discourage you. Don't let you not feeling like doing it to discourage you from painting. Just try and do it anyway. So I hope this painting inspires you. And just remember to take time to do some painting and always enjoy the process.